Robot here from Vespa Motorsport, Scooterwest.com for all things Vespa. I'm going to show you how you can convert any year of a North American Primavera 50, 150, the Vespa Electrica, the Sprint, as is right here. So pretty much any model, if you have these pod turnstiles, I'm going to show you how to get rid of them and put these sporty Euro style turnstiles that are flush with the body. So no more pods. The only reason they add the pods is they're a little bit wider than the integrated turn signals and the leg shield. So in Europe, this would be the turn signal. All they do is just some basic looking running lights. They changed it just recently. This kit will fit the newer scooters. Quite a few steps, is a little more involved than some of the other kits we've installed in the past. So I would suggest watching this video carefully when doing the install. And they have a nice sequential modern appearance to them, kind of like a lot of fancy cars, and then the running lights dim right in. They look great at night. They're nice and bright. Pretty straightforward to install, and the rear are the added benefit of having both a running light and a brake light in both the rear turn signals. So that's a pretty neat feature versus on the modern versions of these scooters with the pods, they're just dead lights. They don't do anything. If you have the older Primavera, 2015 through 2017, they were running lights and they were problematic. They would burn up the bulb sockets. So this is the solution to take care of that problem because you get the running lights in the back. So let me go over the items included with the kit. So you have this whole bag of little goodies. We have this LED compatible flasher, and a magnetic tray is pretty nice. Several zip ties. You have several of these crimp terminals with flags on them. Wire insulators. You have various plugs, 3 different sizes of plastic plugs to fill the holes. And these are posi taps for tapping into 2 existing wires on the original wiring harness. And you have these splice connectors that are nice and easy to use. So that's all the little hardware pieces that are included with the kit to modify the scooter to accept the Euro style turn signals. So the turn signals are complete replacement units. You have the wiring and they just bolt right in place of the stock front turn signals. Same goes with the rear. So there's some extra wires right here that we'll use, and the rear turn signals as well that also have integrated running lights and a brake light function. So we'll start on the rear. Kind of the easier the install, less needs to be taken apart, but it's also the more critical part of the install because you want to have the wires well sealed and you want to have them all tucked away. I'll try to get some B-roll to kind of show how to get those wires so they'll stay out of the wheel and the muffler. Pretty important. So this kit will work on any year of the US spec Primavera or Sprint. So starting in 2015 all the way up to 2026, that already has some LED turn signals up front. We do have a separate kit for specifically for that model that just reuses the existing items, but this is the kit that will work with anything. It's a little bit more intrusive on the install. So you need to know how to use crimp terminals and how to strip wire and that sort of stuff. So we're going to remove the license plate, illumination, and that's just those 2 fasteners that I took out, setting them all aside. And on each of the sides of this fender, there's Phillips screws with a washer. Don't necessarily need to remove the brake light or tail light. In some models, it's only a brake light. These are the tail lights. Fortunately, the kit includes the tail light functionality, so pretty straightforward there. I'll go ahead and remove the 2 screws that retain the lenses. So I would say 2017 and later, these were dead lights, or no, maybe it was a little bit later than that. When they had the larger tail light, these are running lights. So some of them have the larger tail light. This was the brake light, and those were tail lights. And then all the later models, these are just dead lights. They actually do have wiring on them, but it's not used. So pull those out. Watch out that these clips don't separate from the scooter frame. So we'll go ahead and remove the remaining two fasteners with a T30 Torx driver. Hold the rear fender. And leave that license plate light in place. And it's tethered by the two pod turn signals right now. So at each of these taillight lenses, you may find zip ties that hold the existing wiring and connections. So go ahead, remove that. We'll go ahead and disconnect this connection right here. So go ahead and lift up on the tab, and it pulls the connector away. We'll do the same for the left side here. And you have these tiny little connectors that are for the pod turn signals. Two ways you can go about it. You can disconnect them if you like, but I'd prefer to just separate them from the pods. All right, so from the back side of the pod, use a #1 Phillips screwdriver, so kind of a small one, and you remove the single screw from back here. Then the lens just pulls right off. And you can pull the reflector out. There's two quick connects behind here. Go ahead and just pull them right away from the reflector assembly. And once that's completed, you could pull the wiring out of the tube that's on the turn signals. Repeat those steps on the other side. And even just yank the reflector right out of there, and they'll come right out. So now that we have this whole fender assembly separated, two ways you can go about it. You can just buy a complete new fender, which I've kind of covered in other videos, and even making a chop fender. But included with the kit is plugs to fill up the holes. So once you remove the pods, the 17mm wrench here, probably don't need a 17, or so loose. And you're gonna have to fill those two little holes. So you take the larger plug, it's like a 3/8 size, and then a smaller plug for the little hole. Do the same for both sides. And you can just set this aside for now. Also recommend you can put some silicone sealant or some type of glue that kind of hold them in place, hot melt, pretty much anything. Just they'll stay in place on their own as well, but if you want them to definitely never pop out, that's one way to go about it. So the wiring for the turn signals, we'll go ahead and pull this up. There's little clips right here and here. And we'll go ahead and pull the wires up through here. So same with that little connector. So we have the complete replacement assemblies. They have a protective coating that kind of have this cool clear look to them. Several wires. We're going to make some modifications to that wiring. So essentially they go just like this. Make sure you don't get them mixed up. You see the screw hole is like that. They look identical, but you have a left and a right side. So the first thing you're going to do, this may sound counterintuitive, but you're going to cut this resistor pack and connection right off. I know it may mate with this connection, but on the US spec bikes, the ground terminal is in the wrong position. So just like this, you don't need much, just a little bit of wire just like that. And you have the existing turn signal wire that went to the pods. This separate little harness is replaceable, so you're not cutting the original harness on the scooter. We'll go ahead and pull that sheathing back and expose those 2 wires there. So go ahead and strip, I would say with the 24 gauge, 22 gauge wire stripper, you're gonna do about a little bit more than an 1/8 inch. You're gonna locate these little ferrules right here. And the way these work is you just push the wire right through and it exposes the copper, and then thread it just like that. They work really well and they're nice and easy to use. The wire's really tight. I'm giving it a pretty good tug. Make sure none of the filaments of the copper are coming out of that little ferrule. One optional step, if you're in a wet climate, you may want to pack these with silicone dielectric grease. Kind of protects them. Same with this back grommet on the back of the turn signal. So here in the dry climate, not much of an issue. So we're going to hit the same on the turn signals. So black goes to black. It's pretty straightforward. So unthread it, and then we'll thread that in place. Make sure it's nice and tight. And at this point, you can even test the functionality of the turn signal. It's gonna fast flash right now until we replace that flasher, just to show you it does work. Leave the keys in there, and it's flashing too fast right now for the sequential to work, but we'll fix that with the correct flasher. So that's the first connection you wanna make. The next connection, you're gonna wanna locate this larger section of the harness. So there's 2 sections. This section goes to your license plate light. You could make the running light connection or splice to this yellow and black wire right in the middle if you like. That's one spot to make that connection. Or you could locate both of them in this upper harness that will also have the brake wire. So a little difficult to pull back because it's kind of up with the frame. So carefully slice back some of this tubing without scratching your bike here. I just don't want to be in the way, or nor do I want to have my fingers in the way. So just carefully, I would say about 1 inch of it. And you can open up the harness right here, and you can locate the white with black stripe wire. Unfortunately, it's right there. Nice and easy to get, so I'm pulling it right out. And you're also welcome to put electrical tape on that if you want, but the wiring, it is insulated in there. There's no splices, so go ahead and use the posi tap. So that has the gray ferrule on the end, and it's got a little straddle right there. And we're gonna straddle that white wire with the black stripe, and that's gonna be your brake light wire. Go ahead and thread that just like that, and it has a little silver needle that will pierce the insulation. These draw very little current, so not really an issue. And in the bag, there's a pair of red wires. So go ahead, separate the red wires out. One of them you want to leave pretty long because it's going to need to reach over to that left side. The other one, I want to cut it much shorter. So maybe like that short, and again, use a small wire stripper. And then this one's already stripped. So we'll go ahead and twist these wires together. You can strip more than you need. At the end, you just want to have, I would say, a little bit more than 1/8 inch of wire. So go ahead, open up this ferrule right here. Push that in there, tighten it down. Just like that. Give it the tug. That one pulled out, so definitely didn't get it tight enough. So just make sure these are all tight. Now we're good. So at this point, you have the red connection. and you have these little vinyl sleeves over the wire. You could put electrical tape over those as well, but make sure the vinyl sleeve kind of stays over that to protect that brass insulation right there, or the brass conductor, that is. And the last wire is going to be our taillight wire. So in order to make the brown connections, we're going to reach back here. You have this little license plate light, and there's going to be a connection. Go ahead, separate this out. Don't trust the wire colors at the actual light. They tend to get them wrong sometimes, believe it or not. They mix up the colors. The wiring's in that little clamp right there, and it's a similar connection to, I'll pull it off, there it is. So lift that little tab just like this, pull that out, we'll get this license light out of the way, and you have the yellow and the black wire right there. So the yellow wire is going to be your running light wire. We'll slice back a little bit of the sheathing. Go ahead and take the posi tap and straddle the yellow with black wire. And this is where you want to put a little bit of that dielectric grease right here, because this always has energy on it. And if you're riding on a rainy day, you don't really want to ruin the wiring. And that will seal it right out. And then we'll go ahead and open this. And you have two connections. You have the two brown wires. You can strip a little bit of the insulation. I would say about 5/16 of insulation stripped from the wires, and go ahead and twist them together. Don't want it too long because you don't want that wiring coming out and being exposed. So I want the insulation kind of in there, and then we'll go put that in. We'll do the same thing, kind of dab it with some of the grease. Make sure the wires don't pull out. And there's the little clip right here that this originally went into, and that slides into this little slot just like this. Obviously it's not really showing what I'm doing right here. All right, so after you made the splice, you have these two little clips right here that trap the wiring. So go ahead and straddle this license plate light back in place. Pop that in the clip. Make that connection. You could pop this back into the frame clip. The other option is use a zip tie, kind of hold it up in there. And then you have this remaining wire that's going to go to your left side for the running light. Go ahead and route that through this clip and do the same on this side. So for right now, it's just hanging out. And before I even worry about the other side, let's check the operation. So made the brown wire to the yellow with black, ignoring the yellow and black that's on the license plate light, because sometimes it's not correct, but on the main harness. And then the white with black wire going to the red wires for your brake light functionality. So there you go. You got the running light, you got the brake light, and we know the turn signal works, and we'll correct that flash rate with when we're up in the front of the scooter. So at this point, you can kind of tuck the wiring off to the side, just like that. We'll put the lens in. Make sure you don't over tighten the screw because it will crack that lens. And we have the two remaining connections, and we'll work on the left side. So pretty much all the same steps, make the same connections. The red wire itself, you want to route that kind of across the top of the tank. You can feel the fuel tank back here. This little wire right here routes through that, and we'll also push the red wire through this top section. It's right behind here, so it's where these wires pass through the frame. So you want to locate that red wire kind of route that across. It's gonna be a little on the short side. Another option is just feed it from this side because you got some extra length. Go ahead and cut the resistor pack off, the yellow and black wires. Cut the pink and black wires. So I'm gonna go ahead and make my red and black connection. So you have the red wire. We have it with this little connection right here. And I kind of have it as far as I can go up the harness. We're gonna put a zip tie because you wanna keep this wiring out of this red wire out of the rear tire. Can't really see what I'm doing, but I'm looking through this turnstile pocket in the frame and putting one little zip tie a little further up and just securing the red wire to this pair of wires right here. And we'll do one more where we kind of nest the wires and kind of have them all bundled up right before we install. And at this point, I have the one little red connection right here. And I'm gonna locate the other red wire, cross that over and make that connection. So there's this other red wire, it's got the bullet connector, and I'm looking through the pocket. You may want to put electrical tape on this to insulate it. That sheathing should do the trick, and we'll put one more zip tie up there kind of to secure it to the right side, just to keep that wiring out of the rear tire and from sagging down. So kind of got one more wire up there. I know you can't quite see what I'm doing, but there we go. So we have one just crossed over there, and then we have this brown wire that's gonna go down, make the connection right here. Push that all the way, make sure that insulation's overlapping, then you'll pull some of the slack up. And at this point, we kind of nest the connections just like this, just to take some of the slack out so it's not hanging low. So I'm gonna put a zip tie around these 4 wires. Kind of the way it was similarly, from the original when I cut those off. So you don't need to worry about that one. Cut the little stringer off. And you can take out some of the slack, just like that. And see, with it zip tied, it kind of pushes up into the frame, up in this little area, and it stays out of the rear wheel. And we'll put the single screw. Pretty certain it's all gonna work. And just make sure all the wires tucked all in these edges right here. I have them in the clips that are already here on the frame. So, and because the rear tire does come within close proximity of this rear section of the frame. And before we put the rear fender, we'll double check the operation of the left side. So I got 2 running lights. I have 2 brake lights. And we have the turn signal hyper flashing on the left side. So all our electrical connections are all made correctly. We put the rear fender back in place. Pretty much start with this same pair of screws that kind of hold it to the body. Our T30 Torx driver. Go ahead and push the license plate light back in place. Sometimes you got to shift it around, get it to pop into the correct location here. Two outer fasteners, and we're pretty much finished up the rear. And I would suggest looking up under there, use any extra zip ties, kind of just to tidy up all the wiring. Make sure nothing is kind of close to the edge or exposed. Looking all the way around, making sure it's all good. Sometimes I'll put an extra little zip tie if needed. All right, so now we're at the front of the scooter. We're gonna do two things here: dismantle, remove the glove box, and dismantle the handlebar cover. So I dropped a little microfiber rag right in the center because I'm not gonna remove the glove box all the way. Kind of wanna have it set off without, off the frame of the scooter without removing and disconnecting all the cables that tether the glove box to the scooter itself. So I have a pair of screws here for this little ABS cover. If you have an older model, that's not going to be there, like a Primavera 2017 or earlier. I like to use our auto ratchet for all these hard to get to fasteners. They're T30. Makes the job much easier, but you can use hand tools as well, so just not much access. So there's 3 fasteners. And that last one, sometimes it's just sitting there in the well. On this side, you have a little rubber plug. Pull that off. It takes quite a bit of force sometimes to pull it out, so that plug pulls right out. And there's going to be a pair of screws on each side. I'm using my hand to kind of keep it on the fastener. You can watch my 2024 and later Primavera video. It's a little bit different. Different steps for getting the glove box. I kind of did restyle the glove box. And this one's a little more buried because you have the ABS pump right there. So you use a magnetic screwdriver, or I just use my finger and carefully trap the fastener. So that's all there is. Take the glove box off. Make sure you keep the glove box door open. We'll pull from the bottom, just like that. The one screw dropped out, that's fine. And you can either use a pry tool or just get your fingers in here and pull the glove box away from the scooter. So a couple fasteners that are useful to disconnect. Right here is your seat pop button. Go ahead and pull that. And then if your scooter has a USB jack, that's going to be in this lower corner. Similar to those connectors where you got to lift the tab. And once you lift that tab, it releases the connection. Go ahead and close the glove box. You can kind of set that off to the side. Here's your existing dummy lights or just running lights. They have that same style tab. We'll go ahead and lift that up, pull the connection off. Go ahead and lift that off that little clip. So a single small screw right here with a #1 Phillips, kind of when we took the pods apart. Go ahead and pull that little screw out. There's going to be a washer and a plastic cup. These little pieces right here, make sure they stay together, and the existing turn signal and assembly just drops right out. And you're going to go ahead and locate the left replacement turn signal assembly. Pretty much drop the wire right through, and pretty much just sets right in, just like that. Get the saran wrap off, it kind of protects the lens. And you take this little cup with the screw and pretty much just thread it right in. So like that. And I'm putting pressure on the front of the turn signal as I'm tightening this. And kind of when it starts bottoming out is about as far as I want to go. It's going to pull the turn signal in so it's flush. Looks really nice and flush on the front, and that's as far as you want to go. So you may think you just plug this right in, but you could see there's some problems with the wiring. So if I plug it in, I will get the running light functionality, but there's a missing pin right there. So we'll come back to that. Do the same for the right side, but moving on to the handlebar covers. There's going to be 3 screws that hold the handlebar covers on. They're all Phillips, even on the newest ones. Number 2 is ideal for removing these screws. So you have a rearmost screw, and it's going to be your longest screw. It's going to drop out like that. So keep track of the screws, and then you may need to turn the handlebars a little bit, get to that middle position screw. They have a lot of friction because they go into the plastic of the handlebar cover top. So that's kind of the medium length screw, as I like to call it. And the last screw, whether it's the Primavera or Sprint, there's slightly different locations. You have this really short screw that holds the headlight rim. Let's do the same on the right side. All right, so we're gonna get the handlebar covers off. You don't need to remove the mirrors, but go ahead and lift the little rubber plugs for the mirrors. Go ahead and lift the headlight rim up and carefully pull this out. Make sure those clips don't drop into the body. Kind of like lift it away. The Sprint's a little easier than the Primavera. The Primavera, the clips tend to want to drop off. And then with all the fasteners out of the way, you can just go ahead and drop that off to the back. You could put some masking tape if you want to protect the finishes. And so here's your same kind of little turn signal connection harnesses. You could follow the wire that goes to the pod. So we'll go ahead and clip the zip tie that holds it to the handlebars. So now it's kind of just going to the pod right just like that. The nut that holds this pod is a little bit hard to get to with a wrench. Sometimes this is a needle nose is all you need. Or a little, can't get a socket on it. There we go. Kind of want to turn the whole pod, but a couple turns. And now we'll liberate the pod from the turn signal, or from the scooter here. So it still has a wiring kind of going through. There you have these couple washers and the nut. So just like the rear, make it easy on yourself. Just go ahead, take the pod apart. Separate the lens. Sometimes they're a little tricky, like this one is. It's because the reflector is kind of staying with the pod. So the lens kind of hinges away, and then the reflector with the bulb, the old school incandescent bulb, just pulls right off. And at this point, the little screw sometimes fall out. You have these pair of wires, and it goes through that little channel just like that. So I'm trying to do this with one hand here. So go ahead and pull that all through. May need to manipulate these little terminals. You could just cut the wires as well, because we're going to do that anyways. All right, so go ahead and get rid of the pod. And at this point, have the harness. And we have that free length of harness here. So I know they both have pink and black wires. Make sure they stay on the right side and the left side. And pretty much same steps for the right side here. They got one zip tie, sometimes 2, holding the wiring to the handlebars. So a little trickier on this side. Go ahead and pull the washers and everything off. And it's a little bit more nested in there. And we've separated the harness here. All right, so we'll take the left turn signal wiring, and you have this brake hose just kind of dropping down. You can see it all drops down with the rest of the wiring harness. So I'll just drop that right down along with all the other wires right there. You have the little connector, pull that sheathing up, And you have this big zip tie that kind of has some sheathing on it as well. Go ahead and drop the wiring through that as well, just like that. One more zip tie. They're all loose enough where you can just put this extra wiring right through. And the idea is, like, when you steer, the wiring still has some movement. And it's just right down here. We're going to make the connection. So you have this existing running light wire, kind of route it in front of that brake hose right there. And we're going to make the one connection for, so you have 3 pins on this connector right here. All right, so we're going to separate this little red tab. I just use my nails. It pulls right out, just like that. You can use one of the included zip ties. So you have the 2 pins, and one doesn't have a pin, and you use a zip tie is all you need to push that little silicone rubber plug out. You have these pair of terminals right here. We'll just cut them right off, right at the terminals, just like that. The black wire is not used. It's ground, so it doesn't really affect anything. I just push it right up the sheathing, that's fine. But the pink wire is the turnstile wire. And we're going to go ahead and strip about 1/8 inch off. We're going to slide one of these little yellow insulators that's included with the kit over the wire, just like that. So there's about 1/8 inch of the copper. And then we're going to take one of the flag terminals, just like this. And the flags kind of are pretty much straddling that copper conductor. So we'll fold the flags over with a needle nose or similar tool. And they're not going to be tight enough. Typically, there's a specialized flag terminal crimper that I do have. Take a diagonal and very carefully squeeze down on it. And if you cut it, we gave you a couple extra terminals, not the end of the world if you got to redo it. And then give it a little tug. Make sure it's tight. And the last 2 flags go around this insulation. You know, the wiring insulator right there. So, and that's very soft, so it doesn't, you just do that. Now it's all in there, just like such. So you see this little cavity right here? The pin's only going to go one way, so you kind of look the way the other pins are oriented. It's kind of a little thicker down there, so the tab's up at the top, the thicker part of the pin, and we'll go ahead and push it into, just like that. It makes a little tiny click. The wire's all in place, just like that. Go ahead and put this little thing here. Then we'll make this connection right here. So just like that, and you kind of have extra slack. There's other parts of the wiring harness. You can push, you can take some of the slack up from the top, just like that. That's not in the way. And it's what I'd recommend is have it kind of towards the front. So you have the original wiring that's kind of covered with electrical tape, and then that new connection we made. And we'll go ahead and put a zip tie around all this. Keep it all nice and tidy so it's out of the way. And then we'll do one more zip tie. So this is a voltage regulator connection. Zip tie just up here, just like this, because it doesn't really reach if you're going to use that little connection. That little resistor thing's kind of heavy anyway. So just like that, everything moves just fine. You may want to steer it left and right, make sure nothing binds up. And while we're down here, you can locate the flasher. So it's this little module. Here's the voltage regulator with this large 6-pin connector. Then you have a 2-pin connector with this little module right here. The 2-pin connector just wiggles right off like that. And this is a little bit larger flasher module, but it plugs right in to that same 2-pin connector. And you'll see this original one is suspended on a piece of rubber right here. You can get it out of the rubber. So this is the non-LED compatible flasher. It's got this little wedge here. You could get this wedge that's on this new flasher to go through that little rubber piece. May take a couple tries. Another option is just put a zip tie around it, but I think I got it in there. So now it's snug and it's like on that little suspension rubber. So that's ideal. This is the perfect time to do a little test. Put your ignition key in. Make sure that this wiring's not shorted right now. So I got the running light, and you can see the turn signal on the back is flashing at the correct flash rate now. So the last of the wiring on the right side's pretty similar steps. So you have the right turn signal harness. We'll kind of drop it down right beside this wiring right here, which is actually from the right hand switch. Drop it right down like that. You have that crazy zip tie with the sheathing around it. Pretty important you go through it because it kind of keeps the wires from entangling. And we'll just go ahead and pull that through. And we'll make the connection somewhere up here. So that turn signal switch just makes the connection right here. Kind of want to put it right in front of this wiring like this and locate this connector. Oftentimes they have it zip tied down here to the fuse holder. You can get a little bit more slack by clipping this zip tie. You could put another zip tie back in place. It holds the speed sensor wire as well for the and you will be able to gain just a little bit extra out of this turn signal wire. It kind of goes up. We can route it up with the main harness. This is your ECU right here. On some models, the later ones don't even have that. Pull a little bit more of this. The pink wire is the only one we care about. Go ahead and clip the terminal off. Black wire will get rid of that terminal. Push the little black wire back into the sheathing that's not needed. Pretty much all the same little steps to make that terminal connection. You know, if you're real careful, you could even strip a wire with a diagonal. You know, sometimes it's a little more difficult. You just don't want to cut any of the copper conductors. So insulator. And a flag terminal. Just like that. Give it a final little tight crimping with a diagonal because that puts a lot more pressure. Just like that. Make sure it doesn't tug. And there you go. Same steps, pull a little lock out. And you can also use, if you don't want to use the zip tie, you can use a little paper clip to push that little insulator out. Just pops right out like that. And we'll put the pin in. It only goes in one direction. So if it doesn't go in, you could rotate it around. Makes that nice little click noise, kind of an assurance that's clicked in place. Put the lock in. And we have the connections up here. I'll route it in front of that brake hose. And kind of need all the slack I can. So it's a little tighter on this side because, and the main wiring harness is a perfect thing. I don't recommend zip tying it to the brake hose. Probably not the best thing to zip tie it to. All right, one zip tie down. Make sure there's a little bit of slack there. Pretty important that you secure this lower wire because it's coming from the rotating handlebars, or the wire coming from there. Quite a few zip ties included, so might as well just tidy everything up. And again, we'll put the key in, test it. Last thing you want to do is have it all put together and something doesn't work. You know, kind of step back on your troubleshooting. Even this little resistor right here, we'll put a zip tie around that. Kind of keep it stationary with the wiring of the scooter here. This wire is kind of thick, so the zip tie is a little on the small side. Kind of go, cut the little slack off. And you can even zip tie this little connection here as well. So put the handlebar covers back together. They have little plastic snaps in the corners. And it snaps all in place first, so make sure you have all the little snaps and the seams fairly closed up. There we go, they're making some nice little positive snaps. All right, so the long screw on the rear, start with that one. Sometimes it's even hard to kind of get it positioned, the screwdriver, because you're kind of finding the head of the screw blind. Just like that. Then you got the medium length screw, kind of nice without the glove box in the way. Make sure it starts, because you don't want to cut new threads. Sometimes you want to go backwards with these kind of screws. Going in nice and smooth. Keep some pressure on the handlebar top. And we'll do the same on the other side. Pop the headlight rim in. We'll take the two hole plugs. You kind of have that larger one that goes on the frontmost hole. If it's a Primavera, it's a real small plug is used, but if it's not the Primavera, it's a medium-sized plug, fills that rear hole. So do the same on both sides. You could put a little glue on it again. Put the headlight frame. It just kind of snaps on the top. There's just this small little screw that. And go ahead and get the other side. The glove box, a couple tricks to it. I still have the rag in place. I did disconnect a couple things. I disconnected the USB plug. So that's located this lower corner right here. Go ahead and snap it back in place. Kind of got to feel your way around. We'll put the fuse holder back in place. So you go ahead and open the glove box. There's the little releases right there. So, and we'll get the fuse holder snapped in place. It kind of pulled out. And last but not least, make sure you connect the seat pop button. So the little latch for this glove box, you need to make sure it's in the lower position. So it's right underneath the key switch. Make sure it's tipped down. And I'm going to get down on my knees and hold this little latch down. So don't worry if the towel, whatever, gets stuck in there. I'm still holding it down. And we're going to get the seam all the way around. A couple technical taps. And we'll get the rag out of position, and use a couple taps kind of upwards to get it snapped in place. So we're going to put the single center screw in. Make sure the glove box latch works before we close the glove box. The moment of truth. Did I get the latch in the right spot? Yep. Opens up. No problem there. There's the trickiest screw. This is where the right angle driver comes in handy, these lower corner screws. Sometimes you just need to work the snaps a little bit more. Also important to make sure none of your wiring is pinched. When you close this up, because you have some wiring that's in close proximity of the screw in here, and it could be pinched between the bodywork. That could be a future short. So just double check everything. Make sure there's no wires there. You may want to shine a flashlight in there, especially on this scooter. It's kind of hard to see everything. The rubber cap can go back in place. And then the ABS cover. Test the glove box. Perfect. So the part number for this kit, MI200-PR-DLX, so Deluxe. So it's the Deluxe kit, pretty affordable, and it's quite a huge upgrade for your Primavera Sprint, and adds the added safety of having extra brake lights and running lights and more. Works for with all years of Primaveras and Sprints. We'll see you in the next one. Robot here for Vespa Motorsport.